PowerPoints can be found on their page in the program participants section. I'm now happy to hand the virtual mic over to Steve. Oh, one final bit of important data. We have a total registration count of 330, which is really wonderful to see. So thank you all for attending. And Steve, the mic is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Dan. And I too want to welcome everybody to the conference. I'm really looking forward to all of the discussions. I believe Emma's going to pull up my slides to say some opening remarks. Clearly, energy efficiency is a key resource for helping to meet our resource needs. Next slide. As Dan kind of alluded to, ACEEE is a research organization. We publish 30, 40 reports a year on many energy efficiency topics, whether it's technologies, programs, policies. We do education, such as this conference, and we also do program and policy technical assistance and a little bit of advocacy based on our research findings. Next. So utility funded energy efficiency programs have been steady and actually growing over the past decade. This chart shows the savings each year from energy efficiency programs, including some preliminary data for 2020. This is not yet published and we're still gathering the data, so those 2020 numbers may change. Next. Likewise, here is spending, again with 2020 as preliminary, but we are talking more than $8 billion a year of spending. May have gone down a little bit last year, but we're still missing a couple of states, so we're waiting on the final numbers there. Next. Energy efficiency still is lower cost than the alternatives. A study we published earlier this year found a weighted average cost of about 2.4 cents per kilowatt hour for energy efficiency, which is lower than any other source. I would note that wind and solar are starting to get competitive, although that is without storage. And when you add storage, efficiency is still clearly the least expensive, but ultimately expect a lot of efficiency, wind and storage, as well as some other things to meet future resource needs. Next. So some of the themes, as Dan noted, of this conference are: how do we use efficiency as a resource to address climate, to address equity? Let me talk a little bit about each of those using some recent research. Next. Equity is critically important. A year ago, we published an updated energy burden study on metropolitan areas. On average, the average household spends about 3.5% of their income on energy. This is just household energy, doesn't include transportation. But as you move to renters, Latino, African-American, and low income, it increases more than twice as high for low income households. And then in rural areas, it's even higher, both in general, but low income moves up to 9% of income there. So we really do need to pay attention. 7%, 9% is really a challenge for affordability. Next. This is a slide from a 2017 study looking at low income programs. You could see with the very large red dots, some utilities have substantial programs, many do not. We'll be revising this report next year, and I hope to see a lot more large red dots. Next. Now, as we think about programs to address equity, there's a number of lessons that we found over the years looking at the successful programs. You need a rigorous public engagement process. You need to look at the multiple benefits, not just energy savings, but comfort, health, job creation. There's a lot of data out there, and use that to help drive the design. And based on that, set goals and monitor how you're doing to be accountable. You're going to need flexible programs. There's no program that's perfect the first time. You have to adapt to lessons learned on the ground. And particularly for low moderate income programs, maximize comprehensiveness. It's not easy to reach people, and you want to maximize the benefits when you do. Next. And I would note in particular about engagement, community engagement. You need to listen to the community. It's not just inform, it's not just consult. At a minimum, you need to involve, but ideally collaborate or even defer to in many programs. How do you get real buy-in as opposed to just speaking down to communities? Next. Turning to climate, this from a study we did a couple of years ago, energy efficiency can get us to about halfway to our decarbonization goals. And that's going to require many different things, whether it's appliances, buildings, industry, vehicles, etc. Next. This shows the breakdown of what those energy carbon reductions are. And I'm not going to go into them all, but you can see it's many little things, many silver BBs, not just a single silver bullet. And these, as Dan noted, these slides, as well as all the slides, will be up on the website for people who want more details. Next. A number of states and utilities are starting to reform their energy portfolios to look at climate forward efficiency, how these efficiency programs can really help meet decarbonization objectives. This shows some of the examples. This will be published next year in a report updating some work we did a year ago. But the chart will be up on the website, and stay tuned for even more. Next. Looks like we're having a little difficulties.
Sorry, one sec.
Okay. Okay, among the things that need to be done to help really reduce energy use and decarbonize, improve building codes. We've made steady progress, as you can see from this graph. The model codes in leading states are now targeting how do we get to zero energy ready, if not zero energy, by about 2030. And the programs can help achieve that, help with implementation, help promote best practices, laying the foundation for future codes. And many utilities are getting credit for their efforts to improve codes. Next. This just, for example, shows from a study last year, the different utilities who are targeting zero energy and zero energy ready new home and new building programs as ways to help move construction to these levels of efficiency, laying the groundwork for future codes. Next. Likewise, retrofit programs are going to be very important. We need to move beyond just lighting to intelligent efficiency, smart buildings, grid-connected, efficient buildings. We need to be thinking about whole building retrofits, particularly at the time of building renovation. And these pictures are from a General Accounting Office report on all the different deep retrofits that they have done in federal buildings at the time of major renovation. Next. More and more communities are adopting building performance standards, mandating upgrades. Boston and Colorado are the most recent just this year, but this shows both in blue all those who have enacted, as well as quite a few that are pending and expected to be adopted in the not too distant future. Next. Don't forget industrial. It's not just buildings, but strategic energy management. How do we do heat pumps and other electrification, as well as other decarbonation strategies such as carbon capture, utilization, and storage. A lot of industrial exhaust streams are high in carbon and can be captured and actually incorporated in products. And then think about decarbonized fuels. And I would note that there is a hydrogen pipeline going from Louisiana into Texas, and we expect many more of those going forward. Next. As Dan noted, electrification is a key strategy. This is from a study by Rocky Mountain Institute. For new construction, what it basically shows is heat pumps are going to be cost effective in all 4 cities they looked at: Oakland, Houston, Providence, and Chicago. For retrofits, it's more of a mixed picture relative to the gray bars, which are oil and propane. Heat pumps can be cost effective. Whereas for natural gas, to oversimplify, heat pumps and natural gas may have very similar operating costs, life cycle costs, and we probably need to improve the economics for heat pumps if they're going to be widely adopted. Next. Similarly, from a study we did last year on commercial buildings, electrification has a payback under 10 years in about a quarter of commercial buildings, but we're going to need policies and programs to improve that. Next. Here's a chart from last year showing a lot of the utilities in states with heat pump programs. We'll be having a new report coming out early next year, updating this and expanding it. Next. Fuel switching rules are evolving. We published something last year on this, and this is an updated version. It'll be part of a study next year, but many states and utilities are changing their rules to permit beneficial fuel switching where it makes economic and climate sense. Next. As we electrify, it's going to be much more important to keep a careful eye on winter peaks during polar vortex events, what happened in Texas last year, but it could happen in many other places. This was a study from earlier this year. The dotted line shows what the peak would have been. This is, in this case, it's New England data, and how much the red, how much we can reduce it with efficiency. But then if you go to the next slide, you can see we can further reduce it further with winter demand response. So the two together can be powerful tools to help manage winter peaks, peaks that haven't been of a concern in much of the country, but increasingly will be. Next. And then we'll be talking during this conference about how do we decarbonize our use of fuels. To begin, you want to weatherize the homes, reduce the use. There is opportunities to use carbon-free fuels, whether it's biogases or hydrogen made from renewable energy. But these are going to be limited supply and or expensive. So whatever fuels we do use for those critical applications where we have to use fuels, very cold climates, high temperature industry, et cetera, try to use those fuels as efficiently as possible, such as with emerging gas heat pumps. Next. I would note some people are saying, oh, why do we really need efficiency? We'll just install heat pumps and solar cells everywhere. But if you put a solar cell on an inefficient home, you're going to spend more for the heat pump, you're going to spend more for the solar collector, and people may not be comfortable when the weather is cold. Next. This shows how comfort heat gets transferred from a person. Air temperature is important, but air motion is very important, drafts and radiation. How cold are the nearby surfaces? Are they well insulated or not? So we need efficiency investments to really help maintain and improve comfort. Next. So the way we look at it is efficiency and renewables are like peanut butter and jelly. It's hard to imagine one without the other. Next. And I'll use this to lay the groundwork for our keynote speaker, Senator Tina Smith. There's a lot pending in both the bipartisan infrastructure bill and potential reconciliation bills. This lists some of the things that ACEEE has been working on and where we see opportunity, but Senator Smith may pick up more on this. I won't go into details, but if people have questions about this, I'm happy to answer them later. With that, I am proud to introduce Senator Smith as our keynote speaker. She's the U.S. Senator from the state of Minnesota. She has been senator since 2018. She's been a very productive senator. She's had more than 50 bills and provisions signed into law. I think there's a few senators who can brag or claim as much credit in such a short time. Her work has helped to make healthcare more affordable and accessible, expanded broadband services across Minnesota as well as the country, and boosted the efforts of schools and teachers to prepare students for in-demand careers. She has also been a leader on energy efficiency and climate, as I think she'll talk about. She's very heavily involved in discussions on clean energy and what their role is in decarbonization in the bill. She's also done work on Rural Energy for America, on the Open Back Better Act, and many others. So with that, please join me in welcoming Senators Tina Smith, and thank you very much, Senator, for joining us.
Well, thank you so much, Steve. I just am so grateful. Hello to everyone. Good afternoon. And thanks so much to ACEEE for inviting me to be a part of your event today. It's great. So what I thought I might do is I'll get to the sort of the current state of play around climate policy discussions and energy discussions in Congress in just a minute. But what I thought I might do is just to start with the topic of energy efficiency, very appropriately, that all of you think about every single day, and just sort of lead from that into the current state of play, and then happy to answer or have a little bit of a Q&A, Steve, if we have time at the end. So I hardly need to say this to all of you, and Steve made the point so well in that excellent presentation, but the cheapest kilowatt hour of electricity is the one that we never have to buy. And the lowest emission energy is the energy that you don't use. So this is why energy efficiency is one of the most important parts of our strategy for getting to a net zero economy by the middle of this century. We also all know on this call today that energy efficiency means jobs. According to E2, more than 3 million Americans worked in clean energy, or are working in clean energy in 2021. And of those 3 million, more than 2 million are employed in energy efficiency. So improving building efficiency, for example, is both cost effective, but also we know that it is a labor intensive endeavor. And those are jobs that cannot be outsourced to any other place in the world. So that is good for our economy, good for jobs, and good for our goals around reducing carbon emissions and expanding energy efficiency. As Steve noted in his presentation, I'm proud that my state of Minnesota, my home state, has been a leader in energy efficiency. In fact, a report released just last week ranks Minnesota number 4 overall in energy efficiency and second in the country in building efficiency. And ACEEE only ranks Minnesota number 9, but that's okay. I'm not here to quibble about that. I'm proud of what we're doing in Minnesota. Minnesota's high rankings didn't just happen. They're not there by accident. That increased efficiency certainly is driven by economics, but it is also driven by good public policy. That has made the expansion, for example, of energy efficiency in buildings, starting with good building codes, energy efficiency with our utilities, both investor-owned utilities as well as the co-ops that we have in Minnesota. But for utilities, energy efficiency resource standards, or EERs to us energy nerds, has really been an extremely important driver for improvement in energy efficiency. So as I'm sure you all know, Texas invented this EERs concept back in 1999, and my state followed in 2007 in a bipartisan way, I should say. And today, 27 states have EERs policy that require electric utilities to get more efficient every year. And 18 states require the same of natural gas utilities. So this has been a really powerful public policy tool. Before coming to the Senate in 2018, I was Minnesota's lieutenant governor. And so like a lot of senators who have come out of state or local elected roles, I follow my first instinct, which is to follow the lead of states when it comes to good federal policy. And that's really what led me in 2019 to introduce the American Energy Efficiency Act, which would establish a federal EERs program. And then in 2020, with Representative Lisa Blunt Rochester from Delaware, I introduced the Open Back Better Act, which would fund energy efficiency and resiliency improvements and retrofits for public buildings and schools, for example. So we originally thought that that would have been a powerful tool for getting Americans back to work and also doing really important work on public buildings when people were still mostly at home and quarantining. That did not happen on that timeline, but the Open Back Better Act is currently included in the House version of the big Build Back Better plan, and which is the reconciliation package. You may have heard of it referred to that way. So I'm working hard to get that package across the finish line as we work on these big bills together. So that kind of brings us to the current state of play in Congress right now. I want to just start as we broach that subject by saying that there is so much that I believe that we will accomplish in the Build Back Better Act on energy efficiency, and I am determined that we get this done. In addition to the energy efficiency bill that I just talked to you about with Representative Blunt Rochester, I lead the legislation which would improve rural energy. It's called the Rural Energy for America program, or REAP, and that would fund energy efficiency and renewable energy projects in rural communities, which would be another very important thing to get done. But in the Build Back Better Act, my number one priority has been the Clean Electricity Performance Plan. This would move the power sector in this country to 80% clean power by 2020 and do it in a way that creates millions of jobs and also allows us to keep utility rates low for businesses and for homeowners, for households. And this was really has been the foundation of President Biden's climate action plan, starting when he was campaigning for president. And just to give you a sense of how powerful this is, several recent outside analyses, including by the Rhodium Group and by Energy Innovations, show that the Clean Electricity Plan is the single most powerful policy in the Biden climate agenda, working with clean energy tax credits to reduce carbon emissions. So it has a lot of literal power. Now, I really do think is the time to push through, this moment is the time to push through the strongest possible policies to achieve the carbon emission reductions that we need. And of course, there is broad support for this across the country, support amongst Republicans, independents, and Democrats. It is not a partisan issue outside of the halls of the Capitol. We know that this is so impactful because if you think about cleaning up the energy sector and then the work that Steve described to add energy efficiency and to electrify everything else, including transportation and building, heating and cooling, you start to have a really powerful multiplier effect. And as we take this step forward, another thing that I know you all know so well, this energy transition, this clean energy transition, a transition towards energy efficiency and clean energy is going to happen. And the question is whether the United States leads that transition or whether we end up following. And if we lead, we will be able to have a bigger share of what looks to be a $23 trillion market opportunity over the next 10 years or so. So we haven't had a moment like this in Washington to make real progress since, I think, 2009. And I am determined that we don't waste this moment. It is not the climate crisis that we face is not some crisis that is in the future that we have to prepare for. It is happening right now. And if you doubt that, you just need to look at this one number, which I think really captures it. On average, over the last 5 years, I think it is, we have spent on average $121 billion a year mitigating the impacts of extreme weather events. Not mentioning, of course, the tragic loss of human life that has happened also as a result. Just to give you some perspective on that number, back in the 1980s, that number was closer to 18 billion. So 18 billion to 121 billion, that is what we're spending right now. So I would argue, and I am arguing strongly here in Congress, that we should be spending those dollars making the improvements in reducing carbon emissions through energy efficiency and cleaning up our power sector to reduce emissions overall. So Now, you may have heard, you may have heard rumors that the clean electricity payment plan is stuck here in Congress, and that is true. We are we're continuing to work to put together a proposal that all 50 senators can support. But I think what is also true is that we just can't waste this moment. The need is too great, and I am certainly open to all ideas for how we get to the reductions that we need. We just cannot compromise on the goal. And I have to say, as I say this, that I do firmly believe that this issue of energy efficiency and carbon reductions to address climate change, to take bold action on climate, is something that is bipartisan in virtually all parts of the country, just not here in the capital of the United States of America. And that is, sometimes that's just, I have to say, it's stunning to me. So I am excited to do this work. I'm excited to talk through how energy efficiency is a crucial part of the strategy that we need to follow to reduce carbon emissions. And as I think about the president heading off to COP26 in Glasgow in just a couple of weeks, it seems even more important that we successfully conclude these negotiations here in Washington, and that we have what are powerful policies, both in the bipartisan infrastructure bill as well as in the Democrats' Build Back Better Act, in order to get the kind of improvements and the kind of change that this moment calls for. So Steve, thank you so much. I'm delighted again to be with you, and I believe we have a few minutes for questions.
Yes, thank you very much, Senator. We very much appreciate your remarks. For people, enter your questions into the chat, and then I will ask them. And I see we have the first one there. Senator, do you have any insight into Senator Manchin's opinion about energy efficiency, such as your Open Back Better Act?
I have to tell you, I haven't spoken directly with Senator Manchin about energy efficiency, but here's what I know about Senator Manchin. He cares about American competitiveness, and being on the forefront of energy efficiency, both on the deployment side as well as on the technology side, is going to enhance American competitiveness. He cares about jobs and creating homegrown jobs in this country. And that is very much what we will accomplish as we aggressively expand energy efficiency. And I also know that he cares a lot about utility rates and wanting to make sure that utility rates stay low. And that is another real benefit, as you pointed out in one of your very first slides, Steve, about how the cheapest energy that you can buy is the energy that you don't have to buy because you didn't need it, because you saved it, because you increased efficiency.
Okay, thank you. And I can add a little bit, because we talked to his staff who talks to him. I know he's been supportive of the Hope for Homes residential retrofit bill. He's put in a number of efficiency provisions in the bipartisan bill. In general, he is a supporter of energy efficiency. Yes, he cares about costs and other things, but he has generally been a supporter of energy efficiency.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah. Next question for the senator. Would transition plans to reemploy skilled fossil fuel industry workers into the clean energy economy help get these efforts unstuck?
Well, first of all, I really appreciate that question. And too often when we think about transition and the energy transition, we think about workers who have been working hard for decades to make sure that the lights go on and that our homes are heated and cooled, are an afterthought of our thinking and not in the forefront of our thinking. So yes, I absolutely believe that this is crucially important. And what we have to do in order to accomplish this is we have to match up workers and their skills, be prepared to do the work to enhance skills or shift skills around to prepare for the new jobs. And you have to have real place-based strategies. So just to be clear, an energy efficiency, if you're from Minnesota's Iron Range and you are transitioning, your job is transitioning away, what you want is jobs that are in Minnesota's Iron Range, not jobs that are in Oklahoma or the Bay Area or West Virginia, wherever it is. So you have to marry that place-based strategy with the skills and technology that workers already have, and then be ready and be prepared to make the investments in training and retraining and the capital investments and new supply chain businesses in the right places. And I think if you do all of those things together, you can definitely find success.
Great, thank you. We have a question based on some of your Minnesota experience, but also perhaps based on your Senate experience as well. What do you find in Minnesota, but also in the Senate? What are the best arguments to get state and local Republican officials to support energy efficiency as an essential element of the clean energy future? I would note that Minnesota, I believe, is the only purple legislature, one house Democratic, one house Republican.
Yeah, that's right. Minnesota is the only legislature in the country where the Senate is Republican, where the one house is Republican and one house is Democratic, and we have a Democratic governor. The tradition in Minnesota for bipartisan work around renewable energy standards and energy efficiency standards goes back to the mid 2000s. In fact, Governor Tim Pawlenty, who was a Republican governor, worked closely with Democratic legislature in order to put in place some of those first strategies. So I kind of learned at that table around how these can be bipartisan issues. Why are they bipartisan issues? Because again, just as I said with Senator Manchin, you're talking about American jobs, you're talking about keeping utility rates low for Americans, and those are all kind of basic core values. I do have to say that our current governor, Tim Walz from Minnesota, has really struggled to get traction with our Republican Senate on some of the clean energy strategies that he's tried to put in place. And I just think that this is short-sighted on the part of my colleagues on the other side. I think that in my mind, clean electricity, clean energy is not a political issue, it's a science issue. And it is a competitiveness issue. And the more we can kind of frame it up in those terms, I think the better that we can do is building out a base of support.
Yeah. And yes, it is challenging, but the Minnesota legislature did just pass a major energy bill this last session, and the governor signed it. So
yes,
they have been able to do it. There still is Minnesota nice. Okay, next question. Is a national energy efficiency resource standard potentially in play as we're trying to figure out how to resolve things on the CEPP and reconciliation?
Yep. Well, I strongly believe that we need, I think that would be a great plan. That's something that I have been leading on, and it should be very much a part of our strategy for advancing our goals. And it can also, I think, build on the great efforts of all those states that I talked about earlier that are already moving down the road of having an energy efficiency standard. So my legislation on that, I have not yet introduced this year. I'm just looking over at Pete to make sure I know exactly. That is primarily because we've been so focused on the clean electricity part of the reconciliation package, but I intend to keep pushing this and keep working to build support for it. It just makes such common sense. And I have to say, Steve, I think I'm going to have to maybe one more question, and then I have to go off to our caucus lunch. So.
Okay, very good. We appreciate your time. One last question. How do you think these reconciliation infrastructure discussions will ultimately resolve?
Well, I am an optimist, but I'm also a realist. And I think that the need for this Build Back Better plan that we're working so hard on here, both investments in infrastructure, roads and bridges and transit, electric vehicle build out and charging stations, that makes so much sense. And the portions and the Build Back Better agenda that is going to be passed with Democrats also just makes so much sense. It's so popular with Americans, and I believe we're going to get it done. Hard things are hard to do, and we're in the midst of what is a difficult thing to do. But I think that at the end of the day, when we finish this off, I keep reminding people, these are the things that, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, these are the things that the president ran on, that I ran on in 2020. And they're what Americans are looking for, and it is up to us to get it done, and we will.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Senator. We wish you good luck in those efforts. We care very much about it. And so we'll let you get to your caucus lunch. But again, thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Okay, thank you. And with that, I believe that is the end of this plenary session. Dan, do you want to take this over, or do we now have a 15-minute break before the next session? I will let Dan see if you want to weigh in at all.
We're taking a break, and we will be switching platform, or oh boy, I should know this. The socio platform, I believe, is up next. So everyone take a little break and check your agenda, and that'll get you to the right place.
Okay, thank you. And we look forward to seeing everybody at 1 o'clock on the socio platform for the next session, which is the, I believe, regional roundup. So we will see you all then. Thank you.